in the end of most of the article, you will find the food for thought for us to clearly find, do a further reading on various topics in which I think not widely discussed among students itself. You see, students like to do demonstration and respond to this, respond to that. I'm not denying the importance of that. I'm just saying that a lot of discussion that needed to be done, maybe weekly or monthly basis, in which all students should take these topics more seriously and just organize some of their little group discussion on several topics in depth. In which case, I think it is very lacking in our for example, in my university itself. So we are more responsive. We are more responsive towards any government policy. When government made a policy like GST, we're responding. We demonstrate, but then we don't have any clear discussion on it. We don't grasp a total or in-depth knowledge in what we demonstrating. That's first. And second one, and I think my question, commentary, my question would be free education. What worries me is that how do we, to panelists, how do we give free education without actually giving more power to the government to actually control the syllabus, all the syllabus, the history of itself, any subject. Because for me, giving a state-funded education would be giving more power for the government to indoctrinate their ideology towards the students for the very primary schooling. So that's my question. How do free education, because in the book, one of the article explained how why government should fund public education. So, thank you.
It was, yes, can we take another comment? Yeah? Gentlemen, we just let them.
Can I just speak from there?
Yes, speak very loudly.
Okay, my name is Ashraf. I'm a student, senior student. So I just want to give a quick thought on my personal opinion on Malaysia's problem, which was not discussed earlier, which is the problem of racial and religious segregation among Malaysian communities. And one of the reasons of this racial and religious segregation in Malaysia, from my opinion, starts from the education system. We have a multiple education system. We have a religious education system. We have Chinese education system, Tamil education system. I think we should just take all this education system. We need a radical movement of having a single education system, and that's why, from my personal opinion, pressure group like Dongzong, I'm sorry if there's some people from Dongzong here, I disagree. Pressure group from Dongzong to push for more focus on other multiple education system. We need a single education system to help cultivate understanding of racial background and religious background, which right now we can see the problem that occurred where the Muslims doesn't understand the problem, doesn't understand the background of the non-Muslim, and the non-Malays don't understand the background of the Malays. And even in the university, we see that the Malays doesn't mingle with the non-Malays, and the non-Malays doesn't mingle with the Malays. And among the Malays, from the religious background, some of them, when they go for university studies, they go to the Middle East. They don't mingle with their non-Malay friends. So this is a very big problem which we don't really address much in our academic discussion. Thank you very much.
Any more? Take one more.
banyak masalah yang kita hadapi sekarang adalah disebabkan oleh sistem pembelajaran yang tidak berkesan, di mana kita mempunyai menteri-menteri yang ada peranan politik mereka untuk menaikkan nama mereka, sehinggakan bidang pelajaran ini menjadi kucak kecil. Ya, kalau katakan kita ada profesional yang mana kita bagi satu tempoh jangka pendek ataupun jangka panjang, dan di mana kita boleh mempersoalkan polisi-polisi pembelajaran. Jadi kita akan masalah ini akan berkurangkan. Tetapi apa yang kita ada sekarang, setiap menteri pendidikan mahu ada kesan politik pada kerja mereka, sehingga kan sistem pembelajaran dipolitikkan. Okay? Dan kita lihat dari tahun 1970, di mana tahun pertama sekolah kebangsaan diperkenalkan. Setelah lebih pada 40 tahun, kita lihat kesannya sekarang. Apa yang kita dapat lihat ialah contohnya apa yang berlaku pada baru-baru ini, seperti dalam kes MH370, di mana kita lihat di mana kekurangan kita dari segi bagaimana kita lihat ahli politik ataupun mereka yang memegang tampuk kuasa GLC, ya, bagaimana mereka ini menangani masalah yang ada. Dan situ kita pun tumpah malu lah. Tumpah malu sebab apa? Kita tahu masalah dari segi seolah-olah pembelajaran yang kita belajar tu tidak ada kesan langsung, tidak ada kesedaran, tidak ada rasa malu, tidak daripada segi kita lihat dari segi immigration, sikap tidak amanah, ya. Dan kita tahu bangsa Jepun, ya, seperti mana yang disebutkan oleh panel tadi, sekolah dia menengahkan amanah, jujur, ya. Jadi bila kita ada dari segi atas hingga ke bawah tidak ada kejujuran, ya. Jadi kita lihat bahawa sistem tu jadi kucak kecil, ya. Selain daripada itu, kita tengok seperti mana adik tadi kata, kita ada sistem sekolah Cina, sekolah Melayu, sekolah agama, sekolah private, ya. Dan kita lihat, kalau saya pun, saya akan pilih sekolah Cina. Sebab apa? Sebab apa saya rasa sekolah Cina tu sekolah Cina tu dia akan murid tu lebih baik. Kita lihat lebih baik daripada sekolah kebangsaan, ya. Jadi kalau kita lihat satu sistem yang baik tu, kita biar. Kalau boleh semua kita belajar bahasa Mandarin, belajar bahasa Inggeris dengan baik dan tidak dipolitikkan, ya. Masalahnya ialah kita ada menteri yang ada peranan politik mereka, sehingga mengacau sistem persekolahan kita, ya. Nama saya Dr. Kamsia.
We have about 10 minutes left, so maybe one last question or comment, and then we'll leave it to the panel to wrap up.
Assalamualaikum. My name is Liana. I just have some thoughts from the panelists, if I may ask. We're talking about basically increasing real wages. Yeah, we're talking about how we should increase the standard and the quality of examinations, for example. But the question is that when we're talking about increasing real wages, it's real wages for whom? Because if you're talking about increasing the standards of the education, does it mean that those who are from the elite society would actually fare better, but then you are actually systematically leaving out those people who are in the rural areas who do not even have the bridge to actually reach that particular stage of quality of education or sophistication of thinking, basically. So that is one thing. And another thing that it occurred to me was that we were talking about, a lot of the criticism was leveled at how, okay, the government is probably not the most clean government. We're talking about how a lot of the economy is basically being watched out because of the implementations and all that. But if we actually take away all those things and we actually talk about really clean, free market capitalism, does that actually address the issue of inequality? So we're talking about, does the trickle effect actually happen if we were to actually have a really clean free market capitalism anyway? So to a certain point, we're talking about, in comparison, if we're talking about welfare states in the Nordic countries, there's actually still a certain amount of government control in terms of how the economy is actually run. So what I'm saying is that rather than, yes, we should get rid of any corruption and all of those things, but we also need to rethink the basic philosophies of what we're actually doing with the economy. It's not just a matter of simply changing the government, but what exactly are we reinstituting instead of its place. So are these kind of discussions going on right now from the top level? So, thank you.
Yeah. Okay, so one last very quick statement before we proceed.
I would like to touch upon Wasiha. I'm a retired banker. On education, everybody has made comments on education. Education, of course, is very important. Do you think our leaders do not know the importance of education? The Prime Minister was educated in UK from a young age. His siblings were all educated in UK. All our cabinet ministers' children either are studying overseas. If they are studying here, most likely they will be in international schools. So it's not that they do not know the importance of education. They know that it's very important to teach the youth, give the youth a very important education. Then why is the system like this? This is what we need to know. So I looked at it from a psychoanalytical angle and I came to the conclusion that a Harvard professor has written a book called Immunity to Change, or we call it Competing Hidden Commitments. This is what is preventing, it could be conscious or it could be unconscious, that the leadership may not want to really give the best education to the population for fear that they are going to create, because they are in a comfortable position with the people remaining as they are. And the moment you give them the best education, you are going to face a lot of demands and comments, and they themselves may be subject to a lot of questions. So it could be an unconscious thing. I'm not saying that they're deliberately doing. Those of you who are interested, a writer called Robert Keegan is a Harvard professor. So my feeling is it's not that the leaders do not know the importance of education. They know very well, but maybe they just want a status quo to remain so that they can have that omnipotence of leading the country. They don't want the citizens to be better educated. This could be conscious around it.
Thank you. Ask the panelists just want to intervene quickly here to remind ourselves that some 52% of Malaysians voted against the establishment. I think no urban constituency in this country actually is in the hands of the ruling government. So that's actually already a sign that so much has changed in this country in the last 15 years in terms of the demands that are being made from the ground for change.
Okay, quite a lot of points to cover. I think free education, anyway, the one who spoke just now is my brother, he has already covered that very well with the education. But free education is just now you're talking about the rural thing. So if you give free education, say, maybe the rural people can have tertiary education, because he may be smart, but he may be lacking the facilities and all that, you see. So that is where it helps for them to go to a residential school, get a proper campus. So I think, why not pump all the way to tertiary? So I think everybody has a right to education. So I think free education is a good move. I think even the opposition, in their manifesto, they also put there that should they come to power, they will make tertiary education free. In terms of as just now Dr. Kamsa said, a lot of 50,000, there are 50,000 Malay students in Chinese school. Because Chinese school, they are doing it very well. They have 6-day schooling, they make them learn maths, and they learn extra language. They not only know English, they know Malay, they know Mandarin. Because Mandarin is the #1 spoken language in the world. So if any of us know Mandarin, we are one up for business. Because China is going to be the largest economy in the world. So you're going to do business in China, you know Mandarin is fantastic. They will welcome you with open arms, you know. I've seen people like, Arabic, go to Middle East, and they really welcome you. Because somebody can speak the language. So I think, because our national education is an average, and is deteriorated, so a lot of people who care for the children's education, they struggle, even though paying income tax to the government, they spend their own money and send them to private school. So double cost. Okay, even though, like for example, security, a lot of us, we have our own security because everybody, they feel that we have so many police, we have so many things, but everybody still feel unsafe. So they have their own, they pay rather than their security. So again, double cost. That's one of the reasons our buying power is going down. Because we're paying road tax, we're paying toll, and we're paying a high price for the car. So I agree that with Mr. Lal Chan, maybe the subsidy should be given direct. Because now subsidy is given across, the rich people also enjoying it, driving a big car. But if you want to bring out a subsidy, you want to bring to market parity, we should do for everything. It means the car price also, like a Toyota Camry, in Japan it's only 40,000 ringgit. It's 178,000 ringgit. So your Anna's calculation on the number of months will come down. So, you want to do it uniformly, not just where it chooses us, So I think the single education, I think education, people want the best for their kids. So you cannot, if you want to uniform it, then you must put it to a very, very high standard. Even in England, I think people still send some of their children to private school, but they don't trust the public school that much. On this, the real wages to increase, I think, again, if we need to improve productivity and improve efficiency. The way when I take wages means from everybody. Of course, those, even though the starting salary, after a few years experience, they tend to go up faster. But then those operators, like a proton factory, the operator, he gets 30 ringgit or 50 ringgit increment. And then, the cost of goods, everything going up. So the most hurt are those wage earners. I think on the rural education, one thing you brought up just now, as what Anna said, that book, volunteerism. I think this is where it can help. I give you my daughter, she's very good in maths. So her classmate was a bit weak in maths. So he came few Sundays to my house. I was also a bit irritated. Hey, you are supposed to study for SPM, how come you're teaching somebody else? But she said, when I teach, I'm also learning more. And she got distinction, and he also got distinction. So the parents were very happy that, they brought a sweet chocolates and everything and gave to my daughter because she volunteered to teach. So as what Anna's mentioned in the book, if each of us can train somebody else, one person, and one graduate per family, that helps. And then free market capitalism, I agree with you, free market alone doesn't work. So you need a mixed economy. There's certain things you need to do, the social things, as what Anna's highlighted. The government must take care of the underprivileged. Even in Islam, we have to give zakat and take care of the underprivileged. But that will remove poverty. When there's no poverty, I think you will have social order. I think I'll stop there. Thank you.
I think on education and on wages first, and I think the underlying factor would be the government punya philosophy of things, like whether it wants the people to be educated, whether it wants the people to be paid decently. As it is now, Malaysia is actually a sweatshop, like I mentioned, the data that we give is in Anna's books. Well, Anna also actually wrote about productivity. Actually, the wages have not gone in line with the productivity. Productivity has increased since 15 years ago, and this is covered very well in Anna's book. But wages have not gone up. Why is that? It's because of the basic philosophy that the government has. It don't want, it sort of collude with the big industries, not to allow the wages to go up. Indirectly, that's how it looks like. But there are simple mechanisms to address wages, simple mechanisms to address education as well. For wages, it's basically to actually have some kind of a control, a rationalized policy on foreign labor. We must have a definite, logical policy on foreign labor. We just cannot allow unlimited inflow of foreign labor. This is one thing. It just upsets, undermines the whole concept of supply and demand for labor supply. So that's one thing. The other thing is, of course, minimum wages. The government has already legislated minimum wages law, right? It has yet to be implemented. It was supposed to be implemented in 2013, now it's deferred to 2014, and in many sectors it is still not done yet. And of course, the rest is education, upskilling. You're talking about training at the entry level. You're talking about upskilling of the rest of the laborers of the labor market. You're talking about 90% or 80% or 90% of the labor market has only SPM, right? And the human resource training fund, right, under the Ministry of Labour, those funds are hardly being used because most big industries doesn't want to train their workers. Because if they train their workers, they will have to pay more. So this is the basic thing. The whole system doesn't want to pay high wages. And this is the problem. And we, the people at large, the stakeholders of our society, we have to address this. We cannot accept this. You see, in countries like in the Western countries, right, they're paying between 50 to 60% of the economy to the workers. We are only paying not even 30%, right? Similarly, as far as household income is concerned, we are only at about 40% level to the GDP. In developed countries, they are almost 70 to 80%. Right? So we are way behind, and we're talking about in a few years' time we'll be a high income nation, a developed country. But look at, if you're very anxious to see what Malaysia will be as a high income nation, right? You should just go to Sarawak, because Sarawak is a high income nation. The GNI per capita picked the World Bank threshold in 2010, but then it went down a bit, right? But hovered quite close to the World Bank threshold. Kuala Lumpur and Selangor is already a high income nation. It doesn't say much because if you go to Sarawak, except for Kuching, the rest of the state is very undeveloped. Level of education is very low, and poverty in Sabah and Sarawak are double digit. So this is, if we are still pursuing high information, such policies, it's meaningless. So it goes back to the leadership. What do actually? But leadership is not their bloody country. This is not their bloody country. So where is our jati diri to allow this to happen in terms of education, in terms of wages and high household income, and now you're talking about the problems of cost of living. The rate of the escalation of cost of living is going faster, is outpacing the growth rate for the wages. This is very evident. And ETP is not really helping. ETP talks about, that you mentioned, 3.3 billion for the NPA. For the rest of the economy, it's about another 1.2 billion, so it's about 4.5 billion to be created by 2020. But if you look at the recent salaries and wages survey result, the country is only producing 120 jobs per year, whereas ETP is projecting about 400,000 jobs a year. So we're not there. And the labour market, if you look closely at the labour market, there's a lot of dubious numbers there. 12 million employed, 9 million wage recipients. 9 million wage recipients only. So there's 3 million people who are considered as employed. But what kind of employment is that? They consider that as informal employment. And out of that 9 million employed as wage recipients, formal formally employed. 2.8 million are foreign workers. So that leaves about, what, 6.2 million local workers. There are only 6.2 million workers who are formally employed. So these are statistics which are available. The state of the country is so bad, actually. So you're talking about producing people education and train them in various vocational and university, but we're not paying and we're not really employing. So there's much to do, and I think what Anas have done is in his way, right? And we at Blind Spot try to convey this data as well, in our Blind Spot page, the perspective of where we are, and we hope that will create more awareness and discussions, and out of that, the question that you want me to, I think there's got to be a sort of a groundswell. The people must move. The people must move. Either way, this side or that side. But like I said, it's no point to simply elect a government when their basic philosophies and policies that we discuss about are not clear. If both are pro-rich and pro-investors, there's no point. Of course, we have to move and change. We have to move and we have to change.
I would like to make a comment here. I think let's admit it, wages are being suppressed in this country. Why? Because Mahathir, in hero worshipping Maggie Thatcher, has destroyed our trade union movement. There's no strong trade union today in this country, because all he's done was he was changed the Trade Unions Act and created in-house unions, which means weak unions related to each factory can have a union, and that's not good enough. We need a revival of a responsible trade union movement that can take care of our workers, and that is today absent. Thank you to Dr. Mahathir.
Okay, thank you so much. It's been a very stimulating evening. I'd like to thank all the panelists, Siraj, Azlan, and Dr. Din. Please give a round of applause to them. Anas is still in the room, is he? Oh, there you are. Okay. I think, is there a little ceremony you want to present the panelists or something? No. Yes? Yes, I think so. I see these presents behind your side. I'm very excited.
You're getting good gift share.
I think I get one myself. Thank you so much and good night.